We all have some story to tell. At least, we all have something to jot in a notebook or to detail around the dinner table. Life brings memories and embarrassments, accomplishments and tangents, and in my case, they all end up in the Notes app on my phone. Welcome to Something to Note, a podcast dedicated to these scribbles of inspiration and facts for humanization. I'm your host, Ben Geezer. Each show, we attempt to get some story, set of experiences, or new outlooks on life off our chests, all centered around some central theme or topic. Think a private journal, but for the public to see, or hear. In the end, we hope to spark something for yourself to start taking note of. All right. Well, welcome to the first episode of Something to Note. That's right, the very first episode. Whoa. This is exciting. I'm excited and a little stressed, but it's exciting. I'm your host, Ben Geezer, as you could probably figure out from the first airing of our intro. That's right, another first. And with all these firsts going on, nailed that, I wanted to talk about a thing that's common with firsts. Like first days of school, first days of work, first time meeting someone, and that is the lovely icebreaker. Yes, icebreakers. We all know what icebreakers are, those fun, quote-unquote, questions we find ourselves answering on our first days and our first interactions with people. You know, trying to connect with people. Terrible stuff. I'm kidding, but you know what I mean. Icebreakers are just stressful. They can be stressful. Maybe you don't think they're that stressful, but for some of us, not always fun. But, you know, according to an online article from the Center for Teaching Innovation at Cornell University, icebreakers actually have several benefits, such as helping create a relaxed environment and building rapport among students. At least that's how teachers may see it. And, you know, it probably is helpful, but I still find myself sometimes, like when someone asks, what's your favorite restaurant? And someone says Olive Garden, I will probably say Olive Garden as well, even though I've never been to Olive Garden. And then personally, I kind of like this idea of all of us all living in a never-ending chain of people saying that they've been to an Olive Garden and saying it's their favorite restaurant, even though no one has actually been to an Olive Garden. Just the constant loop of that, just awkwardness of people not wanting to admit their actual restaurant. And I think that's a truly more unifying sentiment when beyond, you know, when you're here, your family. We're all just people who think they've been to Olive Garden, or want you to think you've been to an Olive Garden. And I think that's nice. But, you know, back on topic. However you feel about icebreakers, I wanted to spend the first two episodes of this podcast dedicated to these first day, first interaction questions and stories. I want to focus on the experience, at least my experience, with these icebreakers, how I deal with them, and responses I've had, and stories that kind of come from them. For one, I think we can all share a common understanding and sense of dread, you know, over the whole situation of that first day, and perhaps this first podcast. But I also think this is a good opportunity to break the ice on what this podcast can do. So, nailed that pun. Starting off, the stories we tell. Now, we all say that one story to try to lighten the mood or break the silence. It's a simple story, many times with self-deprecation at its center, to try to get quick laughs and come off as relatable, to try to make light of a situation or to explain it with someone new. So, for example, this first story I want to take note of is this one I tell whenever I find myself around those talking about their exercise routines, or if I'm ever in a situation where I fail miserably at a basic physical activity, such as lifting a pack of water bottles, for example. That they're heavy. I mean, come on. Don't look at me like that. I mean, you can't see me, but I sense the judgment. I sense it. So with this in mind, the story I want to tell, I give you a story I like to title. That's right, I give it a little title. I call it Good Things Come When You Wait. And wait, are you ready for this? Is spelled W-E-I-G-H-T. Boom. All right, take it away. In high school, I had to take weightlifting for a PE credit. Well, technically, I also had the option of cross-training. Instead of bench sweat and life endangerment, I would have learned breathing tips while doing yoga and what goals I should strive for whenever I actually decided to go running. Useful stuff. I'm not saying weightlifting is not beneficial to one's health, though. It's just I don't need a spotter for double knotting my tennis shoes. Not to brag or anything. However, it was common understanding that girls signed up for cross-training and that boys signed up for weightlifting. This was never an official school policy, it was never in the handbook, it was just one of those social norms you never dared to cross, especially in high school. And I don't think the guy whose personality was essentially just knowing the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack and wearing a Tommy Bahama fedora in public. Yes, I, Ben Geezer, wore a fedora in public, confidently, as a sophomore, a 15-year-old in maybe 16, oh gosh, in high school, in public, at the mall, at the restaurant, at the movies. I would wear a fedora. I'm not at a beach. I'm not an old man. I'm not a detective. But I wore one by choice. So, yeah, that was a thing. I didn't think I looked bad. I'm not gonna lie, I think I looked pretty good. But I should know my place. I should not have worn a fedora. Why was I wearing a fedora? I wore a fedora. So look, I don't know if that person really needed any additional targets on his back by trying to break the norms of boys being in cross-training. So I ended up in the weight room that sophomore year of high school, taking note of my potential station partners, as well as where to find the disinfecting wipes. I, like everyone at my school, referred to my gym teacher as Coach. Besides yelling at me with the rest of the class whenever he thought we weren't pushing ourselves hard enough in our morning stretches, all witnessed, of course, from his chair he would wheel in from wherever, who knows where. I don't remember Coach ever coaching me directly. At least, if he was paying attention to me, he would not have allowed my spotter to be CJ. Now, it wasn't that CJ and I didn't get along. In fact, we wanted to be partners. Specifically, I knew him a little bit from sitting in the back of Honors English with him. The two of us had found Arthur Miller's The Crucible a little more comical than what a play on the Salem witch trials was likely going for. Though our whispered, out-of-place Braveheart impersonations along with the dialogue didn't really help with making it a little more serious. But even then, we weren't that close, so I was surprised he reached out to me. Frankly, I was sure Coach was going to assign me with a fellow scrawny student, someone who was more partial to hide-and-go-seek than arm wrestling. You see, an important safety measure when lifting weights is to partner with someone with a similar body type or a similar bar limit. This way, you can both strive to meet similar goals while also knowing that the other can spot your bench press attempts, that everything should go safely and smoothly. CJ prepared, cooked, and ate a rotisserie chicken with rice every morning, many times bringing his Tupperware into the locker room with him. He learned mixed martial arts in his free time, and I witnessed many of his fellow wrestling enthusiasts get headlocked in the hallways. He wanted to fight, and I remember him even promoting a match or two after our graduation. Really, he was essentially Sam Wilson as Captain America. No super soldier serum, just motivation, dedication, and biceps to literally bash skulls in. I was Steve Rogers if he got turned down the super soldier serum, never became Captain America, accepted his lack of direction, and filled his time with Pop-Tarts and TV. And the fact that I made a reference to these movies is probably another indication on what I was like as a sophomore in high school. Needless to say, I never felt safer having someone spot for me, though this was the only time someone had ever spotted for me and still has. But even then, he was able to lift whatever I was struggling under with just one arm. One arm. Even once I got past just the bar, which that's probably not a brag, but you get the idea. It was fantastic. But of course, we were partners. So whenever we would have to switch, holy shit. Reasonably, I could only call 911 if the over 300-pound squat, essentially carrying 3 of my sophomore selves, was ever too much for him. It was horrifying. So, yeah, we should not have been partners together. But despite these differences, Coach never batted an eye. He might have shaken his head or quipped about the situation, but he let us carry on while he focused his attention on the new recruits to the football team. Perhaps he was hoping to teach us a lesson about thinking things through, as well as general physics. Perhaps he trusted us enough since CJ and I knew each other. Perhaps he didn't care. Whatever the case, I can't really say I learned a lot from Coach. He was just there to be the adult in the room, to tell us when we could use the bathroom. In truth, I learned more from CJ. Jokes about the dangers of neck strengthening, which, by the way, why would you do them? Why would you do exercises that made your neck larger? There's probably a reason. I just don't see it. But he taught me also what seasonings and vegetables go well with pork chops and how my priority should be focusing on the exercise we were doing rather than the stress of not getting through a daily requirement on an Excel spreadsheet Coach assigned. Really, CJ is who I have to thank for getting me through the hell that is high school PE. He for sure didn't need me. Life is full of uncertainties, struggles, and unwanted decisions. It's one thing to find a coach to tell you what to do. It's another to find someone who can lift the bar and carry you forward. Sometimes even literally. That's going to do it for this episode of Something to Note. Just remember, it might be something big, it might be something brief, but there's always something to note in our everyday lives. Why not share it? I'm Ben Geezer. Thanks for listening.